Hey guys, welcome back. So now we're getting back into the Joker series, and we've reached the point where Vengeance and Bane are getting ready to have a bit of a heart-to-heart. But also through the course of this, we're getting set up for that big finale, when we see what Jim Gordon decides to do when it's all said and done. But for now, we're going to talk about Vengeance versus Bane. So first, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to catch the spills every week, and don't forget to hit that bell up top, so we can squat up in the comments for the first hour. Alright, so in our last talk, we had seen Vengeance make her way down to Hooper County, Texas, and immediately upon her arrival, she had made a bloodbath out of the Sampson clan and friends, leaving Vicky and Sawyer Sampson to be some of the only survivors out of the family and dinner guests, who from there didn't stick around, with Sawyer pulling Vicky into the panic room. And as we get into this one, I want you guys to keep in mind that from here, the events that we are seeing taking place in Hooper County, and really from the time that Vengeance had finally got her hands on the Joker, for her only then to be stopped by Bane, that from here we're entering into a space where only a handful of people are actually here to know what happened. And we'll jump back into what exactly happened in just a moment. But with how this is done, we actually jump in 3 weeks later, where we find Jim Gordon getting ready to undergo interrogation from Chief Detective Isabella Hallows from Interpol, who we had seen before in issues 6 through 8, when initially she showed up and had taken Jim into custody because his fingerprints were all around the 4 dead scientists at the sketchy cloning lab. But at that time, she had expressed that she was really trying to get more information on the network. And if you guys remember at the time, rather quickly between the two, there was a lot of flirting going on. Sparks were flying, they were looking in each other's eyes, until Vengeance showed up and she ripped Isabella's arm off. And really from there, Jim and Isabella kind of lost touch. Yeah. And I mean, Isabella did get her arm back, like it's stitched back on, but the spark that was initially lit between these two, it's gone. But really it's through the scope of Isabella, who immediately tells Jim to address her as Chief Detective Hallows, cause it's strictly professional at this point. But it's with her that we find that she's trying to figure out what exactly happened at the Sampson family compound. And really from here throughout to the conclusion of this, we're gonna be jumping back and forth between the scope of everyone else who wants to know what happened and the scope of Jim Gordon, who knows what actually happened. So we're gonna be doing that dance a little bit for this one in our next talk about the conclusion. But Jim just lets her know when he got there, he found Vicky and Sawyer Sampson, as well as body parts being served for dinner, and that's when he called the local authorities. And while Jim's here, this other detective tries to press him, talking about, well, how did you know the Sampson family was cannibals? And Jim just tells him that he knows the same way that the whole world knows now, which was because everywhere you looked at the compound, they were serving up faces and fingers as delicacies, amongst a bunch of other unmentionables. And not to mention, upon Sawyer's arrest, he shouted at the police officers that he was gonna eat them alive. So really for the most part, Jim is just putting on the front that he only knows what the public knows. So when Isabella asks if he saw Vengeance at the Sampson compound, Jim's just like, nope. And when she shows him a picture of Bane, saying that one of the survivors claimed to have seen him there, and Jim looks at the picture and he's just like, well, I thought Bane was dead. And then she puts down a picture of the Joker and Jim says nothing. And right away she loses it because she knows Jim was following the Joker for months. She knows the Sampson family took the Joker at some point and dragged him down to Hooper County, Texas, with the intention to eat him. She knows the Joker was there when Jim got there, and what she really wants to know is if Jim killed the Joker. So she asks him directly, and Jim says nothing. But even with Jim not telling Detective Howells the whole story, we still see him think back to how the events had unfolded. And this is what takes us back to the moment where Bane stopped Vengeance from killing the Joker. And like we had seen right away, Bane is like, no, he's not gonna allow Vengeance to do this. And initially she's shocked because she didn't even know that the original Bane was still alive. But also with Bane stopping Vengeance from doing this, she sees this as Bane taking away this moment from her. So immediately she demands that Bane explains himself, and right away we find that he's willing to do so, but he wants Vengeance to calm down before he teaches her why she shouldn't kill the Joker. But she refuses to calm down and she goes straight for Bane, only to truly find out what strength is when he catches her face first. And really with how this is going down, it's not like Bane just wants to beat the mess out of Vengeance for no reason, though it may very much seem that way. But really what's happening here is that Bane, he sees himself in Vengeance, and for that reason he knows her potential, and it's more the case to where he wants to help her reach the fulfillment of that potential. And one of the first lessons he tells her is that she has a child's understanding of strength, and that's what makes her weak. And he points out something to Vengeance that she's missed this whole time, and he tells her her masters have programmed her well because she thinks that she's resisting the programming by fulfilling the mission that they sent her to do. And it's true, because this whole time Vengeance, she's wanted to break away from the programming. She wants to be free, but at the end of the day, how do we know that the scientists at Santa Prisca, that they didn't compensate for her rebellion? So that now, with her wanting to kill the Joker for Jim Gordon instead, thinking that it's her making her own decision, when really it's just her programming finding another way to get the original job done. And Bane's not going to allow himself, his clone, or his daughter to go through that. You know, however you may see Vengeance. And really it's here where we're seeing Bane tell Vengeance that he wants to see her prove real strength by showing that she's strong enough to resist the programming. But also while this is going on, the Joker, he tries to slip away in the middle of all the commotion, but Jim's not having that. And it's here we find Jim take the Joker to meet Cressida so that he can end this once and for all. But Cressida is a lot closer than you would imagine, because at this time she's already inside the house using the advanced technology provided by the Court of Owls in order to hack into Sawyer Sampson's safe room. And of course when the Joker hears Court of Owls, he's like, oh, this is getting better. Because again, a lot of this he had just pieced together through assumption. But even still, the Joker's not fully aware of who all the players are. And it's at this time when the Joker asks who exactly Cressida is and why does she want him dead. But in the larger picture, for one, Cressida, she doesn't necessarily want the Joker dead. And though she finds the Joker distasteful, this is never really about getting the Joker killed. And it's here where Cressida tells the Joker that she's the daughter of Sebastian Clark, previous Grandmaster of the Court of Owls, who was overthrown, and who at one point had tried to get his power back by teaming up with Bane, which didn't work. But for years this caused Cressida to live in fear, hiding from the Court of Owls and from the global network, and she had dreamed to have the opportunity one day to tear the network down, but she knew she couldn't do it alone. But while Cressida's father was headmaster, he had taken a keen noticing to the new cloning projects, thinking that it would be a valuable resource to creating new talents. But the generals at Santa Prisca, they bid higher because they wanted it more. Because the generals at Santa Prisca, they had their own issue. They had tried to control Bane through mental conditioning, but mentally he was too strong and it didn't work. So after that, they wanted him dead, because they had been working on a new Bane, Project Vengeance. And for the generals at Santa Prisca, this was the Bane that they could control. And they had planned that upon the death of the original Bane, he would become a martyr, and that would be the perfect time for them to debut Vengeance, this new version of Bane that they could control. So for Cressida, with her having this sensitive information, she needed to take it to somebody who can form a plan that could do serious damage to the network. So with her taking this information to Bane, this is how he faked his death on A-Day, leaving the clone of himself dead, which again is why we got a fake Bane running around in Task Force Z. But on top of that, to make sure that this plan did not just fall apart, they needed to make it seem like this was someone else's plan, which is how this whole thing got pinned on the Joker. And with hearing this, it makes Cressida and Bane's motives clear. She has it out for the Court of Owls and the network. And Bane wants to tear down the system that's kept his captors in power for so long. But even still, the Joker is curious about what Jim wants out of all this. And it's here where again, Jim makes a reference to back when he first joined the force. And again, he remembers a conversation that he had in a bar in Chicago, when at the time it was Jim as a young cop talking to an old cop. And that old cop told Jim about the time that he had let a truly evil man slip through his fingers, who had later went on to kill more people. And that old cop told Jim that if he's ever in that same situation, when he sees evil, he should aim for the head. And in response to the Joker, that's what Jim does. But then all of a sudden, Vengeance just smashes through the wall like the Kool-Aid Man, because Bane still hasn't gotten through to her, and she still wants to kill the Joker. But fortunately, at this point, Cressida has hacked her way into the safe room, so right away her, Jim, and the Joker run inside and lock the door, which now places the three of them in there with Vicky and Sawyer Sampson. Which from here pretty much takes the story in two different directions, with the next issue following Jim, and this one giving us more or less the conclusion to the story arc of Vengeance. Like, this is pretty much it for her. And I don't mean like in a grim way, but more so in relation to the overarching story and her involvement in the Joker series for the foreseeable future. But what we come to find out with Vengeance is that through this conversation with Bane, he's able to get Vengeance to open her eyes and realize that her real enemy is also their mutual enemy, who in their case is the generals at Santa Prisca, because Bane wants to get rid of their whole entire cloning operation. So him and Vengeance head down there to do just that. And from there, we're not really told what's next for Bane and Vengeance. But also it's hinted to us that even with them taking down Santa Prisca's cloning facility, that it's possible that other clones like Vengeance have already been made and they're out there in the wild. So it'll be fun to see who that is and what they're up to. But with how this is done, we jump forward in time again, where we find Jim back in Gotham and no longer being interrogated by Isabella, but not long after he gets back, he has a conversation with Barbara, who calls her dad and more or less tells him two words: he knows. So Jim heads home and he pours 2 drinks because he knows he has some explaining to do. Because going from here, there's only one issue left. And with how this is done, the question that still remains is, did Jim Gordon kill the Joker? And that's a question that we'll talk about in the next one, as Jim tells Batman what exactly happened in that safe room, as far as who made it out alive and who didn't. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support, and for anyone who's new here who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below to where you can go to patreon.com/Dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.